Now for the most exciting part of the sourdough process, which is making bread. The schedule for baking bread depends on the time of year. I'm going to share with you all how I make bread in winter. Because we don't have central heating in our house, I have to shift my schedule between winter and summer. But this is the winter schedule, so it is evening, the night before I'm planning to bake my bread. I'm going to make my sponge. To make bread, we need several components. Most importantly, our live, bubbly sourdough starter. I think it is best to make bread using a scale, a digital scale. A beautiful handmade pottery bowl, non-chlorinated water, whole flour. This is freshly ground rye flour, and some white flour. So first, I put my bowl on my scale, and I do everything in grams. I make sure I've tared the scale so it is at 0. First, the bubbly sourdough starter. I put in roughly 120 grams of starter for 1 loaf of bread, which in this case is all of the starter. I tare again, so I'm back at 0. Now, I always do my whole flour in the sponge. So I'm going to add roughly 10% of my recipe, maybe more, in whole flour, and then I will add the rest in white flour. What I'm going for right now is 300 grams of flour. To make good bread, it's easiest to use baker's percentages, which are a little too involved for this video, so I'll put out a future video all about baker's percentages. But know in this case that this bread is 75% hydration. And so I put in half of my flour, which is 300 grams. I tare my scale again, and then I'm going to add 450 grams of water. I like to do this all in one bowl, but in theory, you could measure out all of your components separately and then just mix them together. Once I've measured out my starter, my flour, and my water, I will stir it all together. Now that I have my sponge mixed with my starter, I'll let it sit overnight and do the next step tomorrow morning.